Hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar. I can see that a lot of people have joined already. Thank you so much for joining. I can see Modupa is saying hello. Please, can you just drop a chat and let me know where you're joining from while we wait for others to join? Can everybody hear me, please? If you can hear me, please, can you just drop it in the chat? Let me know if you can hear me. Okay, so I see. Can you just drop in the chat where you're joining us from? Hi, Martini. I can see you're joining from Canada. Thank you very much for joining. I see Modupe as well. I see Kosi as well. Thank you for joining. Modupe says she's joining from the UK. I see Anthony as well. Okay, Kosi is joining from South Africa. Thank you very much for joining. Okay, so without further ado, I think it's better for us to start so that we don't waste each other's time, because I want to have enough time to answer as many questions as possible, and then we can kick off from there. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Please let me know. You can just give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Okay, so I see Kechiko has also joined. I see other people are also joining. Thank you very much for joining. Okay, so I'd like to welcome everybody again to this webinar. And today, what we'll be looking at is how to start your cybersecurity journey as a vulnerability management engineer. And we're going to be looking at some of the key skills that you would need to learn, or some of the things that a recruiter might be looking out for if by adventure you want to dive into this particular role. I'll say the cybersecurity is a very, very interesting role. And one of the reasons why I tend to go around training people or showing people why you can start a career in cybersecurity as a vulnerability engineer is because it's quite it gives people an opportunity to change their lives because cybersecurity is a very very let me use the word lucrative career, because the need is really there, and I'm going to go into what the market is saying, what are the skill set that you would need to get your foot in the door, and other things that you definitely need. Okay, so a little bit about myself. For those of you that are just meeting me for the first time, probably you haven't heard anything about me. Somebody shared my registration link with you, or you saw it on LinkedIn or Facebook or all the social media handles I shared it on. So about myself, my name is Oluwaseyi Akilude. I'm originally from Nigeria, but at the moment I'm based in South Africa. I've been in cybersecurity for over 8 years now, with a couple of experience under my belt. I've worked in the telecoms industry before. Currently, I work in a consulting firm, and then I've also worked in educational services as well. So I've got experience around some of these three industries. In terms of certification, I have certification with Cisco. I have a CCNA. I also have currently working on bagging my CCI as well in Cisco space for security. I also have certification in Skybox, also Fortinet, AWS. Currently, I'm also a Cisco certified instructor. A few months ago, I currently bagged my CISSP and also certified in cybersecurity by IIT Square. And I'm also a CompTIA certified instructor. So this is not to actually intimidate you though, but it's just to tell you how much of commitment I give to myself and also to keep going in this field, because cybersecurity requires you to continually grow on a daily basis. So you've got to keep improving yourself, and all that. So what do I do for fun? I love to spend time with my family. I'm married with blessed with two kids. I love to spend time with them. They're twins, lovely, wonderful people in my family. And then I also like to go hiking with my friends. At least on the Saturday, I try to go on hiking just to keep up the shape. And also at my spare time, I love to watch Netflix as well. So you're not alone, those who watch Netflix. Okay, so you can also reach me via email. You can send me an email in case you want to reach me privately, you want to send a request to me or something. And then you can also follow me on my YouTube channel, Sheyoluwa Sheyakilude. Just do a search on YouTube and then you'll find me there. Okay, so a little bit about that's pretty much about myself. So let's move into the agenda for the day. So this today we're going to use roughly about an hour, and then I'm going to leave so much time for us to ask as many questions as possible, especially for people that really want to go into that are looking to go into cybersecurity, vulnerability management, especially. Okay, so we're going to be looking at what is cybersecurity. Why is cybersecurity important? What's the big deal about cybersecurity? What are the roles in cybersecurity? And then what do you need to do to break into the field of as a vulnerability management engineer? What exactly what is in it for you? What are the benefits if you can start your career in cybersecurity as a vulnerability management engineer? And then we're also going to look at the skill set and certifications you would need. I've heard a lot of people say that you definitely don't need certification. Yeah, I quite agree. But the truth is that uh, preparing for certifications actually help you to build additional skill set. So a certification itself, is a skill set that you have to go through. Even though I know it has been bastardized, but it doesn't still negate the fact that people need to go after the skill sets that certification tend to provide. And lastly, I want to speak about the processes involved in vulnerability management. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time with that because, as much as being you want to go into this particular area, role in cybersecurity, it's good for you to understand the process. The reason being that understanding the process actually makes the work easier for you, and then it stands you apart from other people, because a lot of people feel being a vulnerability engineer just revolves around you scanning and sending reports, but there's a lot more to it. And then I'm going to show you a whole of that in this webinar. Okay, so let's start. So, what exactly is cybersecurity? And this definition is actually from Cisco.com. And then cybersecurity is a practice of protecting systems, networks, and programs from digital attacks. These types of attacks are usually aimed at accessing, changing, or destroying sensitive information, extorting money from users via ransomware, or interrupting normal business operations. So, cybersecurity is a very, very broad term. People have used it in different formats. People feel cybersecurity is the same as information security. So I don't want to go into all of those rivalry, but I just want to focus specifically on cybersecurity. So in the world right now, the market is craving for cybersecurity professionals, because on a daily basis you always hear of the cyber attacks globally. So it's a global threat that affects all of us. So the different things that threat actors tend to do, they steal people's credit card, they do phishing, they perform phishing attacks to get credible information from customers. They run ransomware attacks to ensure that companies' files are encrypted, that you have to pay a huge amount of money. So huge amount of attacks is actually going on, and that's what makes cybersecurity a very, very, very huge role. Apart from the fact that it's quite lucrative, because I see a lot of people, transitioning from different fields, people that don't even have, that didn't graduate or wouldn't even go to study computer science, so to speak, but they've moved into cybersecurity, and they're really doing quite very well. They're really doing quite very well. So this just shows that anybody can actually take that bold step and move into cybersecurity. So apart from the fact that we understand what cybersecurity is, by the time you go into this field, you realize that you're really saving lives. Imagine a couple of people that will have lost their lives or lost their finances, due to phishing attacks, and you are there, protecting those data. You might not know how valuable the work you're doing, saving human lives. So cybersecurity is a huge and a big field that is still growing, and the skill gap is very, very wide, and the industry is actually looking for a lot of people that could, come into that space and do so well. Okay, so why cybersecurity? So looking at the statistics, in the US, in the United States alone, there is 3.4 million workers, shortage of workers in the field. So that's to say that you and I have huge amount of space to cover. So if you're coming into this field without without any form of experience, or feeling like, oh, the environment is saturated, I'm glad to tell you that there's a huge amount of space for you. So in the United States alone, according to statistics, and I have my reference in the slide you're looking at, is more than 700,000 unfilled cybersecurity jobs. So this is just the US alone. Look at other countries globally in the world. So there is a huge, huge amount of opportunities if you want to go into the cybersecurity field. So don't feel like maybe it's saturated. There's even people from other fields in security, people from network security are trying to move, into cybersecurity now. So cybersecurity is a big, big, big deal. So you and I have huge amount of role to cover, huge amount of gaps to cover. So it's still very, very rich. And then the possibility of making six figures is actually very possible in cybersecurity. I mean, I know of people that in the US that they just came back from school and don't have any experience, and on their first job they're earning in six figures. So the pricing or the amount might not be the same across all the continents or all the countries in the world, but the truth is just that you see yourself as somebody valuable and that you are really, really needed in the marketplace. Okay, so let's look at the roles in cybersecurity. So there are different roles in cybersecurity, and according to CyberSec, these are all of the cybersecurity roles. And then we didn't even touch the CISO roles, the CISO type of role. But in terms of technicality, technical skills, basic knowledge, and all of that, these are the basic roles that you have. So we have a cybersecurity specialist, we have cybersecurity analysts, we have incident and intrusion analysts, we have IT auditors, we have penetration testing and vulnerability testers, we have cybersecurity consultants, we have cybersecurity managers, cybersecurity engineers, and cybersecurity architects. So the role keeps increasing. There's the CISO, which is the CCO type of role. So there's a huge amount of opportunities for anybody who wants to go into cybersecurity. And one of the questions a lot of people usually ask me is that I want to go into cybersecurity, but hey, I don't like coding. I'm not a coding person. People tend to scare me and say, hey, you have to know this, you have to know that before you can go into cybersecurity. I would say categorically no. Fine, you need to have some basic skills in some specific areas, which I'm going to get into shortly. But in overall, I believe that a layman can still, start a journey in cybersecurity. And I believe that one of the roles that you can actually start from is vulnerability management. And one of the reasons why I'm saying that carefully is because vulnerability management is a role that it's very, very important to every organization, and which means that every organization are always, if they don't have a vulnerability manager, engineer dedicated, they will always have somebody that is running vulnerability assessment in their environment, that's really looking after the vulnerability management process. So starting from there gives you a chance because even compliance level requires that an organization should have vulnerability management report, they should run assessment. So having somebody that knows how it works, that know how to use the tools, that know how to provide reporting, that know how to present and ensure that there's remediation and all of those stuff. That person is very valuable to the organization. Okay, so here I'm just going to focus specifically on vulnerability testing, vulnerability assessment. And another thing is that looking at vulnerability management, most people, especially those in the field itself, start from vulnerability management and then they grow their career, into penetration testing. Some diverge into compliance. Some, move into IT auditing. So starting from vulnerability management does not mean you have to stay there. There are other parts that you can actually branch into, and if you really know what you're doing, you can go to the highest level in cybersecurity, which is becoming a CISO. Chief Information Security Officer. So the knowledge you have, being a vulnerability management engineer, it's a major, major, major role. And every organization are always looking to managing risk. And I always say to people that everything we're doing in cybersecurity, we're just managing risk. We call it different names, be it the penetration tester, be whatever role you might occupy in cybersecurity. Everything we're doing is we're managing risk. So it's a good place to start from. And then so let's look at other things that that's actually needed. So what are the benefits of going into the field, cybersecurity as a vulnerability engineer? And one of the things is that it requires less technical skills. And I'm going to say that with all caution. Now, saying that requires less technical skills does not mean you don't need to know some basics. So at least the basic, you need to have some networking basics. You need to have good security knowledge. And then you need to understand the tool that you'll be working with. So when I say less technical, at least it requires less of programming. You don't have to know about coding. You don't have to be so good using Python. Even though some recruiters are always asking all of those questions, but actually in the doing of the job, because I've been doing it for quite a while, you don't really need to know how to use Python and all of those stuff. It's a good skill to have. It also depends on the type of engineer that you actually focus. Because vulnerability engineer, you could actually be an endpoint. You can also want to say you want to branch into looking at endpoints. You want to look at application security. So all of those extensions to vulnerability management might require much more in-depth knowledge. But just starting from the basic as a vulnerability management engineer, you don't require all of those in-depth type of knowledge. Okay, so number two thing again, the benefit is that it's a compliance requirement. According to ISO 27001, there's a requirement that you should have a vulnerability, you should run for technical vulnerability assessment. So, as a result of that, there's a need to have a dedicated engineer or a dedicated role or a dedicated team that oversees those type of work. So some organizations, because of the shortage of skill, might actually outsource that role. So you see organizations that provide vulnerability management as a service to organizations, and then they help them run the scans, they help them provide the report, and then they present those reports to the management team, and then they try to follow them up with remediation of those vulnerabilities and things like that. So it's a role that it's quite needed. That skill is a very, very needed skill, and like I said, you can actually go into that. Okay, so another thing again is that there's a lot of career growth possibilities. Starting from being a vulnerability engineer, and once you start from that level, you can actually you definitely begin to find things that you find interesting. Begin to find areas in cybersecurity that are interesting. So in the course of you running vulnerability assessments, you might definitely begin to think, oh, I think I would really want to go deeper, by delving into I'm an IT auditor, or I want to go into compliance and things like that. So the possibility of where you could actually be starting from this level, it's endless. You could also start thinking, okay, I want to even start my own business. I want to be a consultant. And like I said, most vulnerabilities or most cyber breaches that happens is as a result of a vulnerability that has not been patched. So sometimes you have huge amount of vulnerabilities that has not been patched, and then an attacker takes advantage of that and they exploit that environment. So having this knowledge of vulnerability management, it helps you grow in your career, even if you decide not to, because definitely at some point you would definitely want to branch into other aspects. But having this strong foundation, it's a good thing to have. It's a good skill to start from. And also, another benefit is that it provides great financial return. In the US alone, I'm going to use US as a benchmark. The people earn as much as $100,000 annually, depending on your experience and your skill set. But on the average, so imagine if you're earning $100,000 annually, it's gonna change your life. Some people might think it's small money, but hey, $100,000 is not chicken change. So it provides you with this such type of financial returns. However, this salary range or financial range, it doesn't happen like that in other countries. In some countries like Nigeria, where I come from, people don't earn that so much. Being a vulnerability engineer or being a cybersecurity analyst, but the truth is that the skill is having this skill set, places you at an advantage globally, because some organizations globally are looking for people that could, even if it's a contract, people are looking for those that could, run vulnerability assessment for them on a contract basis and things like that. Okay, so next thing I want to look at is that, so what are the skill sets you would need to be able to function or perform exceptionally well in this role? And one of the first things you would need is basic networking. And now I'm not saying you have to be an expert at networking, but you need to understand basic networking. You need to understand what a VLAN is. You need to understand what IP addresses are. You need to understand what is a subnet. You need to understand just basic things in IP address and basic networking. So it's very critical because by the time you start working in this field, the possibility is that you might be the one to, in some organizations, you might be the one to deploy the tool, vulnerability management tool, or you might be running, work actually handling an already existing tool. So probably you just got employed, and then you have to be the one to manage the Tenable that's already in the environment, or Qualys, or Rapid7, or any of the other tools out there. So you need to have that basic networking skills. You need to know what a subnet is. You need to know how to when you start looking at firewalls, because you have to interact with networking team in terms of whitelisting your IP addresses as it to transverse the net. So it all depends on you just need to have that basic skill set. And also, you also need to know about vulnerability scanning tools, because definitely you would be using a huge amount of that. So, using the top three, Tenable, Rapid7, Qualys, those are the top three that are well known in the industry today. So you need to know about any of those scanning tools. Some of them are free tools, free learning tools that you can actually jump onto, and then you can start learning about the tools. Another thing you also need to learn is analytical. You also need to you should be able to analyze vulnerabilities, because one of the key things is that you would have huge amounts of vulnerabilities when you run your vulnerability assessment. So you would need to have you should be able to analyze some of the vulnerabilities. And before, we usually tend to focus more on severity level type of we tend to classify vulnerabilities based on severity levels, which is still very much in use, but now we're really moving into risk based type of vulnerability. So what that means is that you tend to classify your risk, your vulnerabilities based on risks, not only on severity levels. Okay. So another thing again is presentation skills. Fine. A lot of people still feel, oh, it's just for me to run a scan and send the reports on a CSV format and send it to the application owners for them to remediate. But to be a professional, you need to learn how to present the vulnerabilities, because you'll be presenting to CTOs. If you're a cybersecurity engineer or you're a vulnerability engineer, you work directly, you'll be reporting directly to your CTO. You will need to present your findings. So probably you need to come up with a dashboard that says, oh, we have 15 applications. Out of those 15 applications, five of them have critical vulnerabilities, and those vulnerabilities are exploitable, and those vulnerabilities don't have a patch at the moment, or there's a workaround for it. So we need to start looking at how to implement controls to mitigate against such vulnerability. So you would need to have presentation skills. So another skill set you would need is to have general security knowledge. So I always recommend anybody that wants to go into this field to have at the basic a security plus, because security plus, computer security plus, will provide you with all of the basic knowledge you would need, right from governance, right to IP addressing, to security attacks, to vulnerability assessment, and all of those stuff. So they provide you with all of this information. And finally, you also need to know about frameworks, ISO 27001, NIST frameworks, the MIDA attack type of frameworks. You don't have to be a specialist at this, but you just need to have a good grasp of these frameworks, because having this type of knowledge would help you know where you fit in the entire GRC space, global risk and compliance space. So it's good you have that understanding of some of these type of frameworks. Okay, so let's continue. So what are the certifications that you would be needing, if you want to go into this role? Like I said, certification, it's you might be certified and you might not have the skill set, but I always tell people that going after certifications allow you to gain skill sets, because that certification will provide you with the skill set that you would need to even achieve the certification. So certification is well needed, and most recruiters are always asking for certifications at the minimum level. So I would recommend you go for Computer Network Plus. That will help you to gather as much knowledge in the networking space that you can actually use to understand how networking is and all of that. Another thing is to understand Security Plus. I mentioned it previously. Security Plus is also a very, very good cyber security certifications to have, because most entry level jobs in security are always asking for Security Plus. So it's a very good security certification and knowledge to actually acquire. And thirdly, another thing is ISC Square certified in cybersecurity. Currently, they are offering a 1 million free vouchers to those that enroll. So I'm not sure if that is still ongoing, but I think it'll be a good thing to check out, and then see how you can get certified. So they offer a 3 month um, knowledge, a 3 months. They give you access to their portal, so you can learn certified in cybersecurity for 3 months, and then they give you a free voucher to write the certification. Although the certification is not at the moment, recruiters are not really, really looking out, asking that you must have that in your CV. But as that initiative from ISC Square, I believe that in a few months, recruiters will start making it as a requirement, or yeah, that for you to get a job, at least at the entry level. Okay, and finally, for vulnerability scanning vendors, they also offer their own certifications. Like Qualys, for example, they offer free certifications for some of their subscriptions. They offer for PCI, they offer for vulnerability management detection and response. So they're actually free certifications that you can go for. And also, Rapid 7 also offers some certification. It's not free. I think it's about $200 or thereabouts. And then Tenable also offers some certification as well. I think they offer one as a specialty and then one as an expert. I think both of them cost around maybe $400. I'm not sure, but they do have some good certifications also. So going after this certification also makes you an expert, because most vulnerability management role are always asking for your skill sets around Qualys, around Rapid 7, around Tenable. So it would be a good thing if you could get those certifications. This shows that you're certified. It shows you know what you're doing, and then it opens a couple of doors for you in that space. Okay, so finally, before I go into the Q&A section, I want to spend a little bit of time in the vulnerability management process. And the reason why I want to spend this time is that a lot of people that are actually in this field, some of them, just understand, oh, I need to know how to use Qualys, just jump into using Qualys or Rapid 7, they run a scan and then they send the report and, oh, I'm done, done. But the truth is that if you understand the process from end to end, it makes you more of a better engineer, and then it helps you to communicate effectively and see yourself in the bigger picture, know exactly why you're doing what you're doing, and it makes the work even more easier for you. So, per adventure, maybe you even haven't, maybe the only thing you know how to use is Qualys, for example. You don't know how to use Tenable, you don't know how to use Rapid 7. Having a broader or a thorough understanding of how vulnerability management process works, you can pick up any vulnerability management tool, and I can guarantee you that in a short period of time, you would master it. Fine, each technology has their own approach, each vendors have their own approach and technologies, but they all function using this vulnerability management process. Okay, so let's look at number one, which is identify assets. Every vulnerability management tool definitely allows you to do assets identification, asset management. So some go deeper, some don't go deeper, but at least it provides you with visibility to the assets that you have in your environment. So for Tenable, for example, they allow you to run host discovery. Qualys, depending on which approach, you might have to use Qualys agent, cloud agent, install it on all of your assets, and then you can use that as your asset management. And also, Rapid7 also does the same thing. You just run a discovery scan. So every of those tools, you definitely want to run a discovery scan. So what that means is that the reason why they're starting with identify assets is because you can't protect what you don't see. So it's very, very critical you have visibility into your environment. So there's a broader approach to identifying assets. I don't want to go deeper. We could be looking at things around configuration management database, using some asset management techniques to gather your asset management, apart from even using the vulnerability assessment tool to identify assets. But it's very critical that your vulnerability management tool needs to identify assets. And the reason why you need to identify assets is because if you're trying to remediate a vulnerability, you need to know the asset owners. So the asset owners you would be people you would reach out to when you're trying to remediate vulnerability. So identifying assets is very critical. Another thing is prioritizing those assets. Now, so once you've identified all of the assets, we need to look at how do you prioritize those assets, and there are different techniques by which assets are being prioritized. Different tools use different techniques. Qualys, for example, Tenable use vulnerability priority rating to prioritize assets. Qualys definitely use critical assets. They use the critical factor, critical numbers. You can assign a criticality factor to a particular asset, and then they can use that to you can use that to actually identify or prioritize your assets. So, in the space of you identifying your assets, you also need to prioritize them. And the reason why you're prioritizing them is so that you can apply security controls on each of those assets. So, if an asset is very critical in the sense that the way you think or the way you can identify if an asset is very critical is to say, hey, if this asset is compromised today, what impact is it going to have on our business? Are we going to lose business? What impact is it going to have on us financially, which is quantitatively, or reputation wise, which is quantitative, which is financial, and qualitative, which is reputation wise. So it's very important that you sit down and you do a little bit of risk assessment to understand how critical that will help you to identify the critical assets within your environment. And then the third thing is to assess. This is where you actually begin to run your assessment, where you run your assessment tools, this is where your Qualys, your Rapid 7, actually doing the scanning itself. That's where it comes in. So in this process, that is where you run your scan, you identify vulnerabilities. These vulnerabilities are categorized based on severity levels, also based on CVSS scores, or it might also be based on the risk that you've identified. So a lot of things goes on in the access stage. And then the fourth thing is you begin to report. Once you've done those security scannings, and then you begin to report to the asset owner. So which brings us back to identifying the assets. And when you identify assets, you need to attach asset owners. Who are the owners of these assets? Okay, so by the time you start creating your reports, you have to present those reports to the management, depending on your reporting line. You have to present reports. Some reports you has to go to the CCO. Some report has to go to the technical teams. And then when you're creating your report, so the essence of reporting is not just because you just run a scan, you just send a report via email, and then you wait for them to remediate and all of that. The essence for reports is it contributes to the bigger picture of risk management, in the sense that while you're providing your reports, you're providing reports such as a top 10 vulnerable hosts, reports as regards top 10 vulnerabilities that are exploitable. You begin to present reports that has to do with hosts that has not vulnerability that has lasted for more than 30 days based on age. You begin to report things that has to do with vulnerabilities that with patch that are available, or vulnerabilities that have been patched in the last 3 months. So all of this type of reports, it plays a bigger picture in securing the entire organization you work for. So people just feel, let me just send a CSV. No, you have to come up with all of those metrics, and good tools provide you with such dashboard that you can actually put together, and then have a meeting with, depending on your role. If you're a consultant, have meeting with the different roles, have meeting with stakeholders, and let them know, sir, this is what's going on. This is your present security posture. You have vulnerability that's been in your environment for the past 180 days, and nothing has been done about them. These vulnerabilities they're exploitable. These are the exploits that are available, and all of those kind of things. So the reporting part is a very big deal part. And after you've actually done the reporting, you've presented your beautiful presentation. So you need to start looking at, okay, so what next? The next thing is we need to start remediating those vulnerabilities. And that itself, it's a big deal, because remediating vulnerabilities is a lot of work. System administrators will have to install patches. Some of them will have to see how to go about with workaround. Some vulnerability might require that you have to change the architecture of your environment, put some services behind the firewall, ensure that some services are hard to go through, an intrusion prevention system, and all of those. So remediation is a big, big, big work. And this is where a lot of people tend to fail, because most vulnerabilities that result in breaches are the vulnerabilities that has not been patched, the vulnerabilities that has been overlooked. You'll be shocked that some organizations are still running their services on Windows XP. It might sound that's not possible this day and age, but if you look at it, you'll be shocked when you see people, still have this kind of vulnerable services still running in their environment. And finally is validate. You need to be able to validate the remediated vulnerabilities. Okay, you have to run the scans and then ensure that, oh, okay, so this vulnerability has actually been patched. And sometimes when you try to validate, the problem comes that you tend to visit, or we see those vulnerabilities again. And then you begin to wonder what's going on. The remediation team has said they've remediated. So sometimes you might have to go into the registry and make some corrections, before the vulnerability scanner can actually now identify that yes, this vulnerability has actually been remediated. So this six process is very critical. You know, being a vulnerability engineer, who wants to become a vulnerability engineer, once you have a broader understanding, I did a couple of videos on my YouTube channel. You can also visit them, about vulnerability management. I spoke extensively on this process, but peradventure you're just coming to get to know me for the first time. I just wanted to add this as a value for you to understand, and then you can leap your career from there. So before I go into the Q&A section, I'd like to say that you can't know everything about vulnerability management in just one webinar. Okay, but I just wanted to start you on a journey that would help you change your life, help you know that you're valuable, and that you're making valuable contribution in the cybersecurity space. Okay, so I'd like to leave room for questions in case there are a couple of things I haven't touched, or a couple of areas that you think that you might be having issues with, and then you want me to answer those questions. So the chat is actually open, and then you can drop your question in the chats, and then I will definitely respond to all of that. So you can start dropping your questions. Um, Okay. So thank you very much, Modipe, for that comment. Thank you so much. Okay. So I'm looking forward to your questions. You can begin to send in your questions. If anybody has any question, uh, I'm hoping to start listening to this question. Okay. So first question coming in from Ikechukwu, he says, "Can Qualys help with website vulnerability management?" Yes. Qualys has a subscription for web application security, so it allows you to run. You can use it to actually run assessment on your website. So if you have that subscription, so it usually comes with if you do a 30 days trial, it comes with that trial version, and then you can actually also subscribe specifically for web application security subscription. It provides you with capability to run vulnerability assessments on your website. So it's called web application security. So you can actually run it, and then you can even go deeper with Qualys. It allows you to go deeper, into that. Ayola Joshua says, "Thank you very much for the webinar. I've been trying to take Qualys exams, but failed 4 times already. As I have no knowledge on networking, would you say it's better to do Network Plus first before the Qualys?" Well, I would say that it's a good thing that if you're thinking of doing Network Plus, but for Qualys, one thing that Qualys tend to do is that they focus primarily on their product, and so the knowledge that you gain is product driven. But having the knowledge in networking also helps because it allows you to understand some of the key terms, go in depth, have a knowledge into how you can use some of those terms, how you can run some of the scans. But for Qualys is more knowledge, is more product driven. But if you're planning to go for that, I would recommend you do that. I would recommend you do that. I would recommend you do that. So okay, so thank you, Nicholas. He says if you only know how to use Qualys and yet the company you see online uses other products, can you apply for such jobs? Well, I would say yes, because the truth is that you don't nobody knows everything, and sometimes you might have to learn a couple of skills on the job. So, peradventure, let's say you're applying for a job and you see they're asking for Tenable or they're asking for Rapid 7. There are a lot of information you can just go online and just start, doing your research. But I would also say that once you understand this process that I just mentioned in this webinar, and then you can use that opportunity to start, learning other tools. Just take your time, learn other tools, read about them, and then go for the interviews. You might be very lucky to get a job, and then you will definitely learn on the job. So nobody knows everything, So I would recommend that. Martini Sonny says that in your experience, how involved are vulnerability managers in patch management, especially when it comes to automating the patch management process? Does a vulnerability manager need to know how to use patch management tools like SCCM? I would say it's a good skill to have, but it's not required. Because your role is not to patch those vulnerabilities. Your role is to ensure that those vulnerabilities are patched by the system owners. So your focus is to ensure that you're keeping a track, you're tracking the vulnerability that has been identified, and then you're ensuring that the system owners are remediating those vulnerabilities. So it is not in your role to actually patch vulnerabilities, unless if you're a system administrator and then you're also functioning as a vulnerability management engineer. So because some organizations, you do many things. So in some companies, the only thing you do is just vulnerability management. Maybe you work as a consultant and you're functioning as a vulnerability management consultant. So with that kind of a role, you don't get involved in the remediation. You might provide support in terms of where they can get resources, in terms of where they can, patch this vulnerability, but you're not actually doing the work. So if you know how to use SCCM, it's great. But if you don't, it's really not a problem. All you just need to do is to ensure that you're tracking that vulnerabilities are being remediated, and then you're validating that these vulnerabilities have been patched. Any question? Any other question? Okay, somebody's asking where do you currently work? Okay, I work as a vulnerability management consultant, so I won't want to go deeper. You can actually look that on my LinkedIn page, so you can actually look me out on that. But I actually work as a consultant, I'm not just giving you theory. This is what I do, on a daily basis and all that. Martini says, "Do you offer vulnerability management class?" Yes, yes, I do. You can reach out to me via email, and then I'll provide you with contacts and information as to how you can enroll for the classes. Um, Jonah, Ruben, it should be said I missed out with this. Would this be available to rewatch? Yes, provided you register for this webinar, you will be getting a reward link via the email. So you get a reward link via the email. Nicholas says, typically, how long can it take for someone to start from the start to learn about Qualys? Well, it all depends. For Qualys, I think they provided, I think they have a duration for you to approach their classes. So, depending on how fast you learn, you can actually just watch. I recommend you watch over and over and over, until you get the skill set. So I also offer training in that regard, but you can always reach out to me if you're interested, and then we can work out one or two things as regards that. But for college, they offer free training as well, so you can just watch as many times as possible until you grab the concept, and then you might just do further research on the concept that's being taught. And they also you can also to learn more you can also enroll for their demo. I think they offer 30 days trial version, so you can just apply for that, and then you can use that to practice as many times as possible. Okay, Ayola Joshua says, can knowing quality software alone land me a VM job? Well, I've seen some job role that are asking only for Qualys because most financial institution, most Fortune 500 type of organizations are actually looking for Qualys engineers, Qualys specialists, because most of them they don't even want to hear about other vendors. All they want to do is quality. So I've actually worked with some organizations that so where I work, sometimes we usually recommend all of the tools because qualities tend to be quite expensive. So some other companies that can afford quality license would rather prefer to do maybe Tenable or also do Rapid Service. So it all depends on your preference, what you can afford, the skill level of your engineers who will be working on that. So if you know Qualys, it's a good tool to know. If then you can also seek out knowledge for other tools. But most recruiters that are asking for vulnerability engineers that are recruiting for that role usually always ask you that if you know Qualys, if you know Tenable, or you must have experience with all of those things. So, but for me, you will definitely still find something. Some of them might be asking specifically for Qualys. And yeah, so that's pretty much it to answer your question, Joshua. Ikechukwu says, do you also use Kali Linux for your vulnerability scan? Well, yes and no. So for Kali Linux, it's a distribution that that is designed specifically for penetration testers. So fine, there are a couple of tools embedded for vulnerability assessment, like the Nikota. You can use Nmap as well. So there are a couple of tools there that you can actually use. I use them frequently myself, but it's not like it's a requirement that you must use Kali Linux. So it's not like it's a requirement. But if you know how to use that, it's also a good advantage because you can actually use that to validate the vulnerabilities. Just to have like a second check on the vulnerabilities that you've identified on the host that you're actually working on. So um, it's a good tool to also lay your hands on that you can actually work with. Any further question? Okay. Okay, so I want to run a poll now, and let's see how do you actually find this. particular webinar. Okay. So I just send the poll now. Do you find this webinar very valuable? Do you think it's a valuable use of your time? Oh, thank you very much. I see a lot of people saying yes, 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 yes. They find it very valuable. Thank you very much for that kind response. That was very heartwarming. Okay, I'm also looking at if there are other questions. Okay, so I think we don't have any other question. So I also want to make this recommendation as well that you can also, just to start getting some hands-on skills as well. You can also try to lay your hands on TryAcme. Just do www.tryacme, one word, tryacme.org. They offer cybersecurity training as well, and I think you just have to pay, I think $10 a month, which is a very very valuable knowledge you could have because they train you on how to use different skills. So they have different rooms. They have rooms for penetration testing. They have rooms for security analysts and all of those things. So it's very good. Okay, I should spell it here. Okay, so it's TRYACK me.org. It's one word. Yeah, exactly. So Joshua just did that. Tryacme.com. Yes, thank you very much, Joshua. Just drop it in the chat. So another question is that in the Qualis training, are all the skills performed there are what we will be performing when employed? Yes, if you're working with Qualis, so it all depends. Most of the time, you would be using. Thank you, Kosi, for dropping that in the chat. If you're using VMDR, for example, you will be doing a lot of those things that you're being taught there. Identifying assets, installing cloud agents, installing virtual appliances, running scans and all of those stuff, creating reports and all that, patch management. So you'll be doing a lot of those stuff. So that the training provides you with those knowledge. So you could just go through them and then you can look through all of that. And like I said, I also offer training in that regard, even though the training itself is free from Qualys, but I realized that a lot of people still have one or two gaps that they feel they don't understand, so they want somebody that can take them or provide them with a that can walk them through personally, like a one-on-one coaching class. So I also offer that as well. So if you're interested, you can actually just send me an email, and then we could work something out. Okay, as we get that. We'll be gradually rounding off. I intend to make this just 1 hour, and then I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone that has actually participated, that's registered for this webinar. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you for coming here, and I sure hope that you've actually found this very very valuable. Um, Somebody saying this says, "I trust that I speak the mind of everyone on this call. We thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us today. Your insights have inspired and motivated us all. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is very warm welcoming." And Anthony is saying that I can testify to the training and I enjoyed it. Thank you very much, Anthony. Thank you very much, Ruben. Thank you so much, every one of you, for joining. And so just keep looking out, just be on the lookout for my next publication. Probably I'll definitely be doing more of this as time goes on. So this is my first outing in terms of um, having a webinar. And thank you very much, Mudupe, again for your observation. And thank you very much, Kosi, again for your feedback. So kindly subscribe to my channel. For those of you that haven't subscribed to my channel, you can just look me out on my YouTube videos, and then you would find very valuable resource. And as time goes on, I'll be uploading many more videos as the case may be. I'm currently working on some, so in a few weeks I'll be dropping some new videos and all that. Thank you very much. I'm also going to upload this on my YouTube channel, so as many people as possible can also watch this and all of that. So thank you very much for joining once again. It's very very warming and welcoming to get the feedbacks I got from every one of you, and then I would see you in my next webinar. I hope you would join. I hope you enjoy my next webinar, and I hope you also share this to other people that you feel might find it very valuable. All right, thank you very much, everyone, and have a wonderful day.